It is very difficult to predict the moment when something went wrong in marriage and family life. Moreover, the signs may be obvious, but it takes time to understand them. My wife suddenly changed her lifestyle, and I can't say that it changed for the worse, but all this had an unpleasant side effect after which I had to terminate my marriage. I'm going to share a narrative detailing how my 21-year marriage fell apart due to arrogance, betrayal, and dishonesty. At the time, I was 44 years old, while my wife Kim was 45. We were your typical American couple living in the heartland, with a comfortable upper-middle-class income and 2 wonderful children. Our son Scott was 19 and in college, and our daughter Jill was a 17-year-old senior graduating early. Scott took after his mother in appearance, while Jill bore a striking resemblance to me except for her mother's captivating blue-violet eyes. Unlike many stories of marital distress, I consider myself fairly average, although I've been fortunate in my career as a consulting engineer. Standing at 5'11" and weighing around 190 pounds, I maintain a lean, athletic physique, and thanks to my metabolism, my waistline hasn't changed much since high school. I have sandy hair, blue-gray eyes, and, well, let's just say I've never received any complaints about my physical attributes. I encountered Kim at a friend's gathering shortly after she had ended a lengthy relationship, triggered by her high school sweetheart abandoning her at the altar for someone he met in college. I had been feeling isolated since parting ways with my first love. Jackie and I attended different universities, and the challenges of a long-distance relationship proved insurmountable. Nonetheless, I had dated numerous women in college, earning a favorable reputation due to my inherently considerate and respectful nature. As a result, I had several bed contacts, although none of them led to significant emotional intimacy until I met Kim in my senior year. Following an intense and rapid romance, we tied the knot soon after graduation. While I completed my engineering degree, Kim earned a degree in secondary education. Despite reaching 45 during our relationship struggles, Kim possessed those timeless genes that preserved her facial youthfulness. With her natural blonde hair, striking blue-violet eyes, and radiant smile, Kim's round face retained its youthful allure. Though there was a slight plumpness over the years, it was hardly noticeable to others. Yet Kim was acutely aware of every change in her face and body. Kim, who was 5 feet 6 inches tall at the time and weighed 154 pounds, gained a little weight due to the changes that occurred to her body after the birth of 2 children. Because of her gorgeous figure, small tummy, and 36-centimeter breasts, some people would call her body type fat or curvy. Personally, I find her physique incredibly attractive and regularly admire it. Despite all her efforts related to dieting, exercise, and weight fluctuations between 145 and 155 pounds, Kim still wasn't convinced of her own beauty. She despised her body and often expressed dissatisfaction with me, especially because I had difficulty maintaining weight. Despite my assurances of her beauty, Kim perceived them as patronizing, reflecting on my tendency to like women, a trait influenced by my upbringing and life experience. I recall the key role of a woman who was my first experience. Being 2 decades older than me, she knew my parents and she satisfied all my needs in bed. Moreover, she taught a lesson that true masculinity is rooted in deep love and respect for women. She gave me the most valuable experience. Having been influenced by the teachings of Mrs., as well as having a determined mother and 2 resolute sisters, I developed a relaxed and respectful attitude towards women. It takes a lot to provoke me to anger. Kim was often seen as assertive, but I learned to adapt and selectively assert myself. Consequently, when I stood firm on something, Kim understood it was non-negotiable. I endeavored to enhance Kim's life, particularly my wife's, by indulging them. Additionally, as Kim preferred taking charge, I found it simpler to take a supportive role. I made strategic choices about which battles to engage in. So, in our marriage dynamic, there were differences in our body attitudes, one inclined towards pleasing and the other towards being pleased, and a contrast between my laid-back demeanor and Kim's assertive, type A personality. Thanks to the advent of the internet, virtual meetings, and advanced computing technology, I've transitioned to working remotely as an independent consulting engineer from my home. I've repurposed a bedroom and bathroom adjacent to the garage into my office space. Meanwhile, Kim teaches at a middle school just a short 10-minute drive away from our subdivision, which means we don't experience the daily commute stress that many couples face. This lifestyle change has afforded us hundreds of extra hours each year, which we can now allocate to more fulfilling activities. Before the Christmas break, Kim joined a nearby health spa, along with some of her fellow teachers, to participate in a New Year weight loss challenge. Despite already practicing yoga once a week at a neighbor's home studio, she hoped for a quick fix to regain her pre-baby figure. During the holidays, she restricted her diet, mainly consuming turkey, natural cranberries, and salads, even when her family prepared a full Christmas dinner. She committed to running with me 3 times a week, starting with shorter distances and gradually increasing. By January, she managed to run a mile with me, and I covered the extra mile later in the day. Right after New Year's, Kim splurged on a vibrant, stylish spring and summer wardrobe, as well as winter clothes in similar fashion, all in sizes that would require her to shed some weight. While I saw this as both motivating and potentially discouraging, as failure to meet her weight loss goals could make these new clothes a reminder of her setback. Having a clear goal served as a strong motivator. I assured her of my support in achieving her goal in any way possible. The challenging discussions revolved around her body, new attire, and her perception of her appearance. It's crucial to note that I adored her physique and considered her the most attractive woman alive. Thus, with apprehension, I navigated through these delicate conversations, always aiming to be supportive, positive, and loving. As January transitioned to February, Kim achieved her desired weight and clothing size. Overnight, a more glamorous, confident, and alluring Kim emerged each morning. She adhered to her diet with unprecedented dedication and joined her teacher friends at the gym almost daily after school. During our morning jogs, Kim managed up to 1.5 miles, but she insisted on wearing earbuds and listening to music, thus ending the conversations we used to share during our runs. Kim began spending more time at the gym during the weekdays, attending swimming classes, advanced yoga, Pilates, and various other sessions. Returning home with a rush of endorphins, she would enthusiastically recount her experiences before heading for a shower. In late February, she attended an extensive makeup seminar at a prominent downtown hotel, returning transformed and laden with $400 worth of new cosmetics, resembling a movie star. During this period, Jill and I typically prepared dinner together, but Kim rarely joined us due to her strict dietary regimen. Even when she did join, she often opted for different meals than ours. As for me, I urged her to strive for more, to push her limits. Occasionally, I even massaged her feet at night, as it seemed to be the only form of closeness I could offer. Our family life has sharply declined. Kim and I used to be very active in the pastel plan, but around the middle of January, the frequency of our meetings dropped sharply from 3 to 4 times a week to barely 4 times a month, a sharp decrease. Even then, it was just hurried sessions. Her sudden change made me stop, causing more than just a hint of concern. When I expressed my concerns about our closeness with her, Kim explained that she had abdominal problems and needed to consult a doctor. She also mentioned that she feels tired because of her diet and exercise. As an engineer, I couldn't help but notice that she had been following this strict daily routine since before Christmas. That weekend saw a series of remarkable events that can change the course of life. It all started with a faulty heater valve and a craving to cook a dozen of our famous ribs for a barbecue shared by my 2 brothers-in-law. It seemed that the time was chosen by some cosmic force that changed the trajectory of my life and, perhaps, the lives of other people. The sequence of events commenced early on Saturday when I visited my local hardware store in search of a component for my kerosene-fired space heater. They directed me to a specialized hardware store downtown that stocks parts for that specific brand. On my way back from the city, I made a pit stop at a renowned BBQ joint to grab some ribs. While waiting in the lengthy queue, a man who had just received his order suddenly recognized me. It turned out to be Brent, my brother-in-law through my wife Kim's sister Jan. Given that they reside south of the city, Brent and I seldom cross paths. We exchanged brief pleasantries as we inched forward in the line, and eventually, Brent broached a more serious topic. How's Kim coping with having Nick Smith as her boss? Who? The name rings a bell, but Brent shook his head and recounted. You remember the guy who left SIS at the altar on their wedding day. He absconded with some socialite he met at university. Leaning in closer, Brent lowered his voice and added, We were worried she might have done him harm before she met you. I attempted to conceal my shock and surprise, responding with, Well, Kim seems to have moved on. Time heals everything, you know. Brent added, Yeah, Nick's aunt, who works with our mom, mentioned that he'd returned here and was now working at SIS's school. When Mom and Dad asked Kim about it, she mentioned that her and Nick were water under the bridge. Brent paused, reflecting. It's crazy that he would end up back here working as an assistant principal at Kim's school. I mean, what are the odds? The word crazy didn't quite capture the turmoil swirling in my mind. Our conversation was cut short as I reached the front of the line, and we exchanged hurried goodbyes. I was so taken aback that I could barely manage to order, a dozen ribs with smoky sauce. No sides, please. As I drove home, my thoughts consumed me. Was this new Kim's way of saying, F you, see what you lost? If so, she would have surely shared that with me. I pondered, what are the odds? An impartial analysis suggested about 10 million to 1. A police detective friend once told me he didn't believe in coincidences because the world operates on random order. Now, I was deeply troubled. People tend to follow routines and habits, adapting them as circumstances change. Kim, for some reason, was compelled to embark on a strict diet and exercise regimen like never before. Whatever the driving force was, it made her incredibly determined and committed. This determination led her to invest in a new wardrobe that she would have to work hard to fit into, along with new makeup. On that Saturday, she was scheduled for a new hairstyle. Seeing Kim's fresh look that afternoon made me ponder. Any typical woman who puts in such effort, time, and expense, and who values her relationship and marriage, would either A, use her newfound confidence and beauty to strengthen intimacy with her spouse, or B, be concerned and address any sudden decline in intimacy. She wouldn't force her husband to inquire, only to receive a disrespectful response. It was perplexing. Kim used to initiate intimacy as much as I did, and she had always enjoyed my admiration of her body for hours on end. Someone who truly enjoys physical intimacy doesn't suddenly stop. There were unmistakable warning signs all around, like flags fluttering in the wind. I even glanced around to see if I had somehow ended up in Red Square, but Lenin's tomb was nowhere in sight. When I finally decide on something, I take action, following Boyd's OODA loop. I sensed that something was amiss and felt compelled to investigate. I stored the ribs in the refrigerator as my stomach churned with unease, completely obliterating any hint of appetite. Turning to the internet, I navigated to the school district's website, specifically choosing Trailview Middle School, and clicking on the faculty section. There he was, Nicholas Nick Smith, the assistant principal, the key figure responsible for the school's day-to-day operations. Scrutinizing his biography, it detailed his educational background, mentioning his bachelor's and master's degrees, his spouse Trudy, and their 3 children, 2 in high school and 1 in college. It further explained that he was hired as a mid-year replacement for the previous assistant principal, who retired in December. Additionally, it revealed that his family would be relocating here over the summer break after completing the school year in Central City. Being self-employed has its perks. It seems like nobody in these tales actually works. They all seem to earn 6-figure salaries without putting in any real effort. Well, I do work, but I maintain a flexibility akin to that of a DC lobbyist and a Russian gymnast's love child. The initial task on my agenda was to verify her enhanced workout routine and ascertain whether she genuinely attended all these additional classes and events. Last Sunday, Kim mentioned meeting some gym friends and was absent from noon until nearly 9 p.m. Upon her return, she gave me a quick kiss on the cheek and handed me a takeout bag from an upscale steakhouse across town. "For you, darling. I'm so filthy. Be right back." I pondered. Filthy? Kim promptly headed for the shower. As I peeked into the bag, I noticed an untouched baked potato and a small slice of ribeye. Under my breath, I muttered, "We have 2 of the top 20 steakhouses within 10 miles, and you and your friends drove over 30 miles? They say that you always need to check the details, so while she was taking a shower, I examined her. Her underwear was hidden in tights on the bedroom floor, where she threw them away. Not the slightest hint of anything. Too clean to match the word dirty. It looks like either he was using a sanitary pad, or they were using a condom, or she was changing her underwear every time. There was no sanitary pad in the bathroom trash can or in the laundry room. I ventured over to her car. Nothing. Flawless. Another anomaly. Monday, a day off from school, was marked by a subdued tension as we shared the quiet space of our home. Despite my attempts at conversation, Kim responded with terse replies. As she prepared a salad, I reached out for a hug, but she remained passive until I released her. "I love you," I expressed, only to receive a fleeting glance from Kim before she averted her gaze. Later that evening, around 7 p.m., I was in my office and accidentally overheard Jill and Kim arguing heatedly. Suddenly, Jill's voice broke into a scream, and she burst into my office in tears, pressing her palms to her cheeks. It reminded me of the last time I saw her cry so much when she was a little kid and fell off a horizontal bar in the park. Moving Jill's hand carefully, I noticed a small mark on her cheek. I was stunned. Kim had never resorted to such parenting before. When I looked up, Kim was standing in the doorway, clearly furious. "Yes, I raised my hand to her. She started harping on me about—" She mimicked Jill. "What's wrong with you and Dad? You are so cool to us. Why are you always goon?" Kim pointed towards us, her voice laced with anger. "I'll take that crap from you, Kevin, but not from your daughter." Kim stormed out. As I comforted Jill, Kim paused at the garage entrance, clutching her purse and keys. "I'm leaving. I can't stand this damn place." The door slammed shut, emphasizing her dramatic exit. After calming Jill down, she blurted out, "Daddy, I think Mom's cheating on you." Her eyes mirrored her mother's, filled with the same intensity as Kim's. Despite my efforts to soothe and reassure Jill, she responded with angry headshakes. "Listen, sweetheart, it'll all be okay. Your mom will come around. I'll talk to her, I promise." Kim arrived around 10:30 and headed straight to the shower, despite having already taken one earlier that morning. I lay in bed, deep in thought. As I listened, I heard Kim quietly crying. "I love you, Kim," I whispered, reaching out. "We can overcome this together." There was no response. I got up, threw on my robe, and decided to occupy myself. I settled into my home office and searched for one of those spy stores that are ubiquitous in big cities. I found 2 GPS trackers and placed a pre-order, charging it to my business Amex card. Earlier, I had phoned my friend Larry, an enthusiastic birdwatcher, and arranged to borrow his digital Nikon with a 300mm telephoto lens. Knowing his fondness for my assistance in the past, he readily agreed and promised to drop it off in the morning on his way to work. The following Tuesday morning, I prepared breakfast for us both, hoping to create an opportunity for Kim to open up. "Honey," I began gently as we ate, "there's something amiss in our marriage. We've gone from being intimate regularly to barely even touching or talking. Can we please address whatever is wrong? Counseling? A weekend getaway? Anything. But let's talk before it's too late." She gazed at me with an uncomfortable silence stretching between us. Those penetrating, captivating eyes of hers, a mesmerizing blend of blue and violet, seemed to peer directly into my soul. Her impeccable makeup, stylish new hairstyle, and fresh wardrobe all seemed to accuse me silently, whispering, "Guilty. Damn it, Kevin. This is a new, more attractive, slimmer, and more charming version of myself, and you're jealous, aren't you?" Her frustration escalated. "Say it. Envious? Absolutely not, Kim. But sweetheart, just tell me, where have we, as a couple, gone? I adore the new you. I want to cherish it, walk hand in hand with it, kiss it, treat it to dinners, make love to it, and grow old alongside it. But it feels like you've drifted away from us, I expressed as gently as I could. She avoided my inquiry, deflecting and obscuring instead. Am I making you feel insecure now? She asked it coldly. That's nonsense, and you know it. My voice quivered with a mixture of frustration and anger. Kim, you keep dodging the question about our marriage because you refuse to answer it. I haven't suddenly ceased to be myself, so what's really going on? My anger boiled over, and she could sense she had pushed me too far. Kim appeared irritated as he emptied her coffee cup and discarded the plate. Returning to the table, she rested her elbows on it and declared, "You've got 10 minutes, so make it quick." Oh, Kim, is this what our relationship hangs deteriorated to? No genuine conversations, just petty drama? With that, I headed to my office. As Kim exited, she called out, "I'm swimming tonight after practice. Expect me back around 9. If I confessed, I knew I'd regret it. Larry left the camera with me and we had a brief conversation. After completing a project and preparing it for shipping via FedEx, I attended to some emails and prepared 2 job quotes for shipping as well. I then headed to the FedEx drop-off amidst the tail end of rush hour traffic into the city. My first stop was at the spy store, followed by a visit to my longtime friend and lawyer, Jerry Olden. Having known each other since grade school, I confided in him about my concerns regarding Kim. Jerry called over one of the attorneys in his firm, Kelly Boscombe, who specialized in divorce cases. She explained that since our state operated on a no-fault divorce system, assets would likely be divided equally, but proving adultery could potentially work in my favor. Since our child, Jill, would reach the age of majority before the divorce was finalized, custody wasn't a concern. I accepted her business card, and before she departed, Ms. Boscombe emphasized the importance of having concrete evidence of adultery, stating, "The proof needs to be irrefutable. The more evidence, the stronger the case." Afterward, I proceeded to the bank to handle all necessary arrangements, organizing everything meticulously. Upon returning home, I canceled all jointly held credit cards with 0 balances. Only 2 cards had outstanding balances, which I cleared using funds from my money market account. Kim possessed 3 cards in her name, primarily for her new look expenses. Any remaining matters could be addressed later, possibly upon filing for divorce if that became necessary. Following that, I arranged for GPS trackers to be installed and downloaded the corresponding software onto my laptop. Attaching them to their respective vehicles was the final step. Upon Jill's return home, I explained my actions to her, though she offered to accompany me, which I declined. "Darling, you need not involve yourself in this, and it may amount to nothing. Mom might simply be experiencing a midlife crisis, you know," I reassured her, holding her close. "For now, your focus should be on understanding and supporting your mother." Given the recognizability of my green Ford F-150, I opted to borrow Jill's inconspicuous white Corolla. I parked near the park just down the street from the middle school, where I had a clear view of the faculty parking lot through binoculars. As Jill left in her car, I observed from my vantage point, pretending to be engrossed in reading as she passed by. Following her discreetly, I noted her deviation from her usual route to the gym, instead driving further down Mercer, past Overton Parkway, and entering a large apartment complex. I halted roughly 120 feet away and retrieved my camera. Jill emerged from her car, striding leisurely across the parking lot before entering an apartment, unlocking it with her own key. I snapped close-up photos, capturing the moment perfectly. It was apartment 1401. I parked nearby and positioned myself under the shade of an oak tree, directly across from the apartment. After about 15 minutes, a sleek black Lexus SUV pulled into the designated spot for 1401, right in front of the unit. I took more pictures of the man I recognized from his official school photograph, Nick Smith. Just as he was about to enter, my wife, wearing only a short nightgown, greeted him with a drink and a kiss. Each photo I took felt like a sharp stab to the heart. Only the urgency of the task prevented me from losing control. No words can convey the bitter surge of emotions that engulfed me. A nauseating heat began at the pit of my stomach and spread upwards. My breath became erratic, and it felt as though the world had stopped emitting light or sound. An hour ago, trust held a different meaning, the city we traversed felt different, and the word love had an entirely different resonance. Now everything, including the cityscape, was filtered through the lens of calculated, heartless betrayal by the person I cherished most in the world. A part of me perished irreversibly. What remained was slowly encased in a hardened shell by the remnants of self-preservation within me. This was the individual who had left Kim at their wedding, a complete betrayal. If anyone could understand the depths of humiliation, betrayal, and backstabbing, it was Kim. Why him out of all people? That moment made me question everything from the past 21 years. What options did I have? It's not like I could simply intervene and salvage my wife's dignity. No, this had been an ongoing issue. As night fell, I made a decision to take action. I drove Jill's car to a spot across the street and discreetly parked it behind an Ace Hardware store. There I purchased a 5-pound sledgehammer, proudly made in America. I also acquired an awl and a can of vibrant safety orange spray paint. Disguised with a low-pulled ball cap, sunglasses, and a feigned limp, thanks to a sharp rock in my shoe, I paid in cash, silently, exchanging it between my fingers without uttering a word. Returning to Jill's car, I secured Larry's camera in the trunk, pondering whether I could get a refund on the GPS trackers. Additionally, I grabbed my digital video recorder used for professional research. It was primed for recording. I had to pause several times, visibly calming myself down. The act of shaking the spray paint for the required 2 to 3 minutes, come on, I'm an engineer, helped steady my nerves. As an afterthought, I tucked my daughter's pepper spray into my pocket. I pulled into the parking lot near the house and put on a flesh-colored ski mask and surgical gloves. First, I chose Kim's car, a dark blue Impala. I punctured all 4 tires, making sure that there were irreparable holes on the sidewalls. Then I wrote, "Cheating wife, easy behavior," on both sides of the car, including the trunk and hood. Yes, I added commas. In stressful situations, people often return to their comfort zone. Then I moved on to an elegant black Lexus SUV owned by my wife's lover. I wrote on it with spray paint, "Sleeping with a married woman." Then he broke into the apartment with a sledgehammer. With the first blow, I knocked out the bolt, and with the second, I smashed the door handle, tore off the safety chain, and opened the door. Turning on the camera, I rushed inside shouting, "You scammers are caught!" I caught them red-handed trying to get out of bed and addressed him by name. "Hey, Principal Nick Smith, why are you sleeping with one of your married teachers?" When he rushed towards me, I fired a hefty dose of pepper spray at him, which scared him off even more. Meanwhile, Kim was screaming, and I informed her, "Don't bother coming home, because you don't have anyone else except here with him." As I slipped away into the night, a gathering crowd of astonished and curious onlookers began to form. I announced, "If your children attend Trailview Middle School, that unscrupulous individual may be their teacher, and the married man engaged in an affair with her could very well be their assistant principal." The response included some shouts, a few claps, and one person even offered me a high five. Passing by, I handed off my newly acquired American-made sledgehammer to a bystander. "Keep it," I shouted as I dashed across the street to Jill's car, adding, "Tell the authorities that the perpetrator is at least 6 to 5, tall, and has a noticeable lisp." I chuckled at my own joke. Adrenaline was surging through me, propelling me forward. On my way home, I disposed of my hat, gloves, ski mask, and sunglasses in a dumpster. When I reached home, Jill greeted me outside, breathless. "Mom called. She said you tried to attack her. She's been trying to reach you, but—" "Jill, darling, calm down. I merely caught her in the act with her lover." Jill's expression was one of disbelief. "Follow me into my study. My phone is locked in my desk." She regarded me with a puzzled look as I retrieved it. There were 6 missed calls and 2 text messages, all from Kim. "Sweetheart, wherever you take your phone, they can trace your location through your phone records." "So, you discovered her with someone else?" It wasn't a question. Jill's eyes widened with apprehension. I nodded in agreement, my throat tight with emotion, rendering me unable to speak. The weight of it all crashed down on me, and tears welled up uncontrollably. I found myself weeping just as intensely as Jill had on Monday. Though I initially tried to push her away, she clung to me, sharing in my sorrow. Ignoring the persistent ringing of my phone, I let it divert to voicemail. Once I regained some composure, I asked Jill to prepare some coffee, realizing there were tasks I needed to attend to before Kim or the authorities arrived. I transferred the images from the SD card onto my computer, organizing them into a folder. Next, I downloaded the video, a process that took some time. While doing so, I opened a draft email and began composing a message, copying and pasting portions into 2 separate emails, intending to send them as a preemptive measure. Each email contained incriminating photos, which I had attached. Additionally, I ensured that both the school board and the principal at Trailview Middle School received the video. The first email was directed to the school board and the principal. The subsequent one was addressed to Nick's wife, Dr. Trudy Smith, MD, utilizing Facebook and internet resources. I made mention of having further evidence available upon request. Upon reviewing the video, I noticed that the camera had shifted slightly when Nick confronted me. In the illuminated closet, a clear view of women's clothing on hangers, accompanied by shoes and plastic tubs, likely containing lingerie, pantyhose, and other items my wife used to conceal her deception, was visible. I captured several screenshots, one of which was enhanced to reveal the evening gown my wife wore during our anniversary dinner last year. These images were promptly sent to Dr. Smith. I noticed Jill standing in the doorway, peering over my shoulder. My daughter seemed lost, which deeply pained me. I made duplicate copies onto a DVD and stored them in my home safe alongside the original media. The remaining copies were saved onto a memory stick for my lawyer. We were in the family room with Jill sitting on my lap in the recliner. Ever since she was a baby, she sought comfort from Daddy when unwell, and I'd spent countless hours in that old recliner with her. This time, we were both feeling ill. Suddenly, Kim burst through the door, shouting wildly, and I glimpsed the yellow cab driving away. Kim got right up in our faces and yelled, "Kevin, what gives you the right to invade his apartment and do what you did, and to our cars?" She shook her fist at me and continued, "You jerk, I'm going to—" Jill leapt from my lap and silenced her mother with 2 forceful slaps. "Mom, if you utter that word again, remember you're with a man who isn't my father." Jill's voice trembled with fury. Her mother stood in shock, hands soothing her stinging cheeks. "If you're going to have my dad arrested, take me too. If I need to slap you again to prove I'm serious, I will. I'm 17, and in this state, I won't go to juvie. The ball's in your court, dear mother." Jill locked eyes with her mother and marched towards the stairs. Tears streaming down her face, she declared, "I'm going to my room, Daddy, and calling the school sick line." Kim collapsed onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands, sobbing. I noticed she wasn't wearing the same dress she had on that morning. After closing the front door, I sat back down and spoke firmly but quietly. "Kim, I wanted us to discuss this. I had an idea of what was happening, but I didn't realize it was so blatant and evident. Please, don't tell me it's only happened a few times, when you have clothes, shoes, and other items over there." She spoke through her hands, refusing to meet my gaze. "Yeah, we need to talk. I just don't know where to begin." I exclaimed, "Why, Kim? Why start there? This is the man who left you standing at the altar, shattered your heart, and flaunted it in your face. And who was there to help you heal from that heartbreak?" Silence ensued. She remained motionless, tears streaming down her face. Then she questioned, "How did you track me down?" "Darling, you were careless. I followed you straight to his doorstep. I watched you greet him, drink in hand, wearing the skimpy nightgown I bought you from Victoria's Secret. You must understand how I feel because that jerk did the same to you. Now, I'll ask again," I shouted. "Why? After 21 damn years of love, loyalty, and fidelity in our marriage, don't I deserve at least that much?" Kim glanced up, filled with fear. She had pushed Kevin Armstrong to his limit. "Give me a moment," she pleaded. I need to use the bathroom. I fetched 2 cups of coffee. If she didn't want one, I'd gladly drink it myself. She had tidied herself up and sat down, appearing more composed, but her face showed signs of being slapped by Jill, mottled and swollen. Her eyes were red and puffy. Taking the coffee mug from me, she muttered, "Thank you, Kevin." I paused, staring at her. "What? What did I do?" she asked defensively. Still seething with anger, pain, jealousy, humiliation, sadness, and fear, did I miss anything? I remarked, "Damn it, Kim. That's the first kind thing you've said to me in weeks. Unless that little display at the table was supposed to be kind and I just misinterpreted it all." The bitterness rising in my throat could be classified as toxic waste, the dioxin of deceit. Kim looked up, her expression ashamed. "Yeah, I guess I deserved that. I've been awful. I'm sorry, truly. Let's either address this openly, or I'll call you a cab and send you back to Loverboy. Why, Kim? Start with why." She hugged a sofa pillow as if trying to shield herself. "You know Nick ditched me on my wedding day. Instead, he married that awful Trudy Geyer because she got pregnant. She trapped him, and her daddy supported her. Anyway, that's haunted me my whole life. Every day it's been there. I always felt inadequate. Trudy stopped taking birth control so Nick would get her pregnant. So, there I was, thinking I had found the love of my life." Kim's mouth dropped open, horror crossing her face. "Kevin, that came out wrong." Tears welled up in her eyes once more. With acid in my voice, I said, "All right, Kim. You were talking about losing the love of your life. I can certainly empathize, my dear, so please continue." "Kev, I mean... Oh, Kim, for God's sake, just get it over with. Your lying words cannot cause as much pain as your treacherous betrayal has already caused." I didn't hide my furious indignation. So why the hell would any sane woman whose heart was shattered and who was extremely humiliated on her wedding day have to admit the jerk who caused it, even if he was in desperate straits? Why the hell is that? "Because I love him and I will always love him," she screamed, spluttering. He claimed that Trudy never loved him, always reminded him that he was just a school principal. She's a damn doctor with a solid trust fund, and she treats him like one of her students. They haven't had a bed relationship in 3 years. After saying that out loud, Kim looked at me with a defiant pout. "That sounds logical, Kim. A guy leaves you, abandons you, humiliates you in front of everyone who is important in your life, and runs away with another woman who even got pregnant from him. And of course you find yourself in his arms again more than 20 years later. Meanwhile, you are changing your life for him, which you have never done for yourself or for your legal spouse, who adored you for who you are. Idolized your attractive figure. I loved you unconditionally. And you've never had to be better than Trudy Geyer to please your husband." I started crying again, but this time it was tears of rage. "So, when were you planning to announce the wedding? Or were you two just going to continue this romance indefinitely? I mean, Trudy is 500 miles away and good old sweet naive Kevin, well, he's just your easygoing cuckold hubby. Hell, if he ever figured it out, he wouldn't do a damn thing." Kim shrugged her shoulders. "Yes, I'm confused, but I can't change what happened, Kevin. What do you want me to do?" "If you do what I really want, this is an acceptable option for you. So how about thinking about the consequences of your actions, both for us and for others? What about our families? His family, your colleagues, your friends, our mutual friends and neighbors? What about your husband? What about the vows you made on our wedding day, especially the part that said you were giving up on everyone else? The most terrible aspect of this is that you have to understand my feelings, considering what he did to you. But you don't seem to care at all about the chaos you've caused. You're only worried about being caught, right? I regret causing you pain, Kevin. However, we can handle this without involving the public eye. No need to involve the authorities. We can divorce amicably and cleanly. Nick's oldest child is already in college, and the twins are juniors. Once they've left home, he plans to divorce Trudy, but they'll remain in Central City. No, Kim. I want both you and him to face consequences. This situation will become public knowledge. You won't escape unscathed. I've been supporting your new me facade for your boyfriend, but that ends now. Brace yourself for the storm, dear, because you're not adequately prepared." My heart was pounding. "Kevin, please reconsider." "Must it come to this?" "Yes, Kim. You dealt the cards. Now you have to play the hand you've been given." I took a shaky breath. "One more thing, Kim. When did it start?" "We met 3 years ago at a teacher's conference. No, we didn't have an affair then. Nick and I just reconnected. For a while, we mainly communicated through phone calls and emails. About a year ago, Trudy started mistreating him badly. I just took him back." I leaned closer to her and whispered, "Remember when I told you about Jockey Lawrence, my high school sweetheart, and how we broke up when we went to college?" Kim nodded in acknowledgement. "Well, she reached out to me about 6 months ago, around late July. Her marriage fell apart, ended in divorce because of her cheating husband. She confessed she still has feelings for me. I told her that chapter of my life is closed as I'm happily married now, but I can't help but wonder if she's still available. Kevin, I'm truly sorry for everything. You were always the stronger one," Kim said, her gaze avoiding mine. "Can I ask you one last question? Please, just be honest, after 21 years together. Did you ever truly love me, Kim? Or was I just a rebound, a way to ease your pain?" I found myself locked in her intense blue-violet eyes. "Yes, Kevin. I love you. I have loved you since the day we met," she confessed, her hands trembling with emotion. Then, with a pleading tone, she added, "But I also love someone else." "Yes, Kevin. It's possible to love 2 people at once. Please try to understand." I let out a loud exhale. "I'm calling complete bullshit on that, dear. If you truly cared about both of us, why did you suddenly stop being physically affectionate with me and emotionally detach yourself from our relationship? You've been emotionally absent for weeks, Kim, so please don't insult my intelligence or try to salvage any credibility you might have left. You don't treat someone you love the way you treated me, and Jill too." "Well, I do love you, Kevin," she replied softly, her voice uncertain. "Kim, I believe you have some deep psychological issues. This is not behavior that a mentally healthy person exhibits. You need to seek help," I stated firmly. She turned away, visibly taken aback. Just then a text message came through. "This is Trudy Smith. Please call me at this number ASAP." I arrived at my office and phoned her. "Well, he's at it again, isn't he? I've forgiven that cheating jerk twice already. I'm through with him. His stuff is getting kicked out tomorrow." After calming down, she added, "I had a feeling when he took that job he had his eyes on Kim. I just knew." I inquired, "Why do you think so?" "We were arguing about his previous job loss. He told me, 'I think I married the wrong woman.' My dad keeps offering him positions at his company, but Nick just sees it as an entitlement because my dad is wealthy, and he's married to me, so it's like gimme, gimme, gimme. The only jobs he can seem to hold are in teaching or school administration." "When did you catch him cheating last?" "Last summer he was in sales and having an affair with a customer." Then her tone softened, filled with sadness. "I'm just sorry he's caused such turmoil in your family, Mr. Armstrong. I used to think Kim was lucky because he dumped her. But now, poor Kim's life is messed up because of Nick. They've both caused havoc in your life too." I made a commitment to send her a package containing all the evidence I gathered via FedEx. She assured me that if I ever needed a friend, I could count on her. Before we ended the call, she chuckled and remarked, "Considering the prenuptial agreement Dad made him sign, Nick will be fortunate if he gets to keep his backside intact, let alone anything else when he leaves." We conversed for a few more minutes and pledged to stay in touch. Upon returning to the family room, Kim inquired, "What was that all about?" "It was Nick's wife," I replied, noting the color drain from her face. "No, Kevin, how could you? That's just utterly vindictive." I nodded. "Yeah, she informed me she's caught Nick cheating twice. She believes her dad keeps getting him jobs, but she suspects he married her for money, feeling entitled without putting in any effort. In fact, he took this job specifically to reconcile with you," I disclosed. Kim affirmed her knowledge with a nod. "Yes, I'm aware. I informed him about Mr. Cruz retiring. The blunt admission left me utterly shocked, akin to standing next to a 500-megawatt power line. I trembled as I poured another cup of coffee, leaning back against the kitchen table. So this was a calculated, premeditated action to reconcile with you. And you aided him. You show no remorse except for being caught. Taking a sip, I scalded my tongue. I'll arrange a cab for you to return to him. No. This is my home too, she stated defiantly. You're partly correct, Kim. This is a house. You've shattered the home. I won't throw you out onto the street because you'll likely be unable to claim unemployment when you're terminated for cause. Besides, legally, I can't force you to leave. What, my job? What have you done, Kevin? Kim's manic demeanor returned. I thought, this woman's mood swings are as erratic as a magnet. Honey, I had to safeguard the children. I emailed the principal and the school board informing them about your affair with your boss. I attached pictures in the video. And dear Kim, if you provoke me further, I'll send this evidence to everyone on my email list. If you decide to stay, I will sleep in my office, on the futon sofa. You can have our bedroom. There are too many memories associated with it for me to rest there. Besides, if your lover crosses the threshold of this house, I'll deal with him. If you want to be with him, go to his house. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. Can't we salvage our marriage? Kim pleaded. I shook my head. Do you hold such little regard for the man who has always cherished you? The only things I've received from you are Scott and Jill, and some pretty satisfying intimacy. Though inside my heart conflicted with my harsh words, I knew I had to prioritize my own self-love again. Seriously, Kim, only someone struggling with mental health issues could believe I'd remain married to you and allow you to be with your supposed soulmate or whoever he is. Softly, I added, Kim, my love for you will always endure, but you must learn to love yourself. You haven't progressed beyond the young woman who was deeply wounded and humiliated. Consider this. You've spent your whole life striving to be worthy of someone who treated you so poorly. Yes, my dear, you need professional help, but I won't be part of it because we are finished. The following day, I gained access to our shared investments ahead of Kim by simply changing our passwords. Subsequently, I consulted our investment advisor and took care of Scott's remaining college expenses, as well as funding Jill's 4 years in advance. Kim reluctantly signed the necessary documents, but upon confronting her with evidence of her infidelity captured on a notorious cheating photos, video memory stick, she swiftly acquiesced. On Thursday, Kim was served divorce papers citing adultery as the grounds. I proposed that we retain the assets we individually acquired and evenly divide the jointly held assets. I presented substantial evidence that Kim and Nick Smith orchestrated the affair from the beginning, although her attorney attempted to claim half of my investments and alimony. My legal counsel countered by seeking half of her teacher's retirement, causing them to retreat. Ultimately, we departed with our original possessions and split the proceeds from the sale of the house. Indeed, the once beloved home was now a thing of the past. Nick Smith was terminated immediately upon arriving at school by taxi on Wednesday. On the other hand, Kim was suspended with pay, and her union argued that she was a victim in the situation since Nick was her superior. She retained her position, but was placed on a 3-year conduct probation. She returned to school in mid-May to complete the academic year. This was fortunate because Smith was detrimental to the school districts. He was likened to someone who couldn't succeed even with ample opportunities. Nick took up employment at Ace Hardware near his apartment and also tutored GED students in math. As Trudy Smith had anticipated, Nick ended up with very little. Kim moved into the master bedroom, a move she was legally entitled to make. Despite still being considerate, I had my boundaries, which I was beginning to assert. In the following weeks, Kim attempted to reconcile, but I maintained a physical and emotional distance. Approximately 6 weeks later, Kim relocated to live with someone else, presumably because her new partner became possessive. Jill exhibited a merciless attitude towards her mother. We often spent time in my office or out on the deck, simply hanging out and discussing various matters. Through our conversations, we both gained insights and grew closer. Towards the end of March, Jill began attending counseling sessions to address her depression and issues with her mother. It's noteworthy that Kim accompanied Jill to some sessions at the counselor's invitation, and I also joined a few, although never with Kim present. Jill showed improvement, but reconciling with her mother will undoubtedly be a challenging journey. Scott, similarly affected by the situation, also harbored strong feelings towards Kim, just like his sister. I faced threats from automobile insurance companies regarding vandalism charges, so I ended up paying a considerable amount to rectify my wrongdoing. Despite the hefty cost, it was deemed worthwhile. Various bystanders captured photos of my actions, which I've since shared with Trudy Smith, who has become a close friend. I perceive myself as an uncelebrated hero of the urban landscape, destined to be immortalized on the internet. When I encountered Kim during the final divorce proceedings, she was hardly recognizable. Her weight had surged to around 170 pounds, and the transformation of the new me was nowhere to be seen. Presumably, without my financial support, she couldn't sustain the luxurious diet meals or afford the pricey gym memberships anymore. Her appearance, including her hairstyle and makeup, had regressed to how it was before my infidelity, likely due to the constraints of their reduced incomes. Interestingly, my accountant, who had also experienced betrayal from a supposedly loving wife, took it upon himself to track down the funds Kim had been lavishing on her lover. Shockingly, for the initial 3 months of the year, she had been covering half of his rent. It turned out that he was residing in one of those extended stay accommodations, conveniently located near the middle school that the school district had arranged. While intended for mid-year hires, Kim and her lover were aware that his presence there would be suspicious, prompting them to opt for a secluded love nest using the stipend, though they couldn't manage to cover the entire expense. All these details were presented to the court. Lesson learned: never underestimate the power of a determined accountant. Towards the end of June, I crossed paths with Hannah Stone, a 36-year-old engineer employed by one of the firms I undertake contract work for. She recently earned a promotion to project manager, and we immediately clicked. Hannah shared with me about her 9-year-old daughter, Autumn, who unfortunately bore the brunt of her absentee father's actions. He had relocated out of state in pursuit of his soulmate and merely fulfilled his parental duties through a monthly child support check. Hannah, in her maternal devotion, took it upon herself to craft birthday cards and special gifts for Autumn, passing them off as if they were from her father. Sadly, the man viewed his daughter merely as a financial obligation. Our friendship blossomed quickly, and we embarked on several casual weekend outings. Occasionally, Jill joined us, and something remarkable unfolded. I witnessed Jill and Hannah forging a deeper bond, tinged with a maternal tenderness. Autumn and I, too, grew inseparable, and I found myself embracing more of a paternal role, which brought me immense joy. Surprisingly, we started to function as a cohesive unit, akin to a family. As time passed, Scott also gravitated towards us. My children, however, remained reluctant to spend time with Nick, and according to Scott, his presence still cast a shadow even when they were with their mother. By late summer, the house remained unsold, and I found myself footing the bill every month. Kim reimbursed me only once for her share, thereafter sending me an email with an IOU for the outstanding balance. As Hannah and I grew closer, we both acknowledged that our past relationships had left us cautious, but everything changed one October weekend. Jill, who had opted to stay home and pursue engineering at my alma mater, graciously looked after Autumn while Hannah and I escaped for a long weekend at a B&B nestled in the mountains. It was there that we shared our first intimate moment, which was truly magical. As Hannah drifted off to sleep in my arms, tears of joy streamed down her cheeks. Come December, I proposed to Hannah, and she ecstatically accepted. Shortly after, she shared an idea she had been harboring, evidently anticipating this moment. She suggested we purchase the house at a discounted rate, factoring in Kim's outstanding debts and my contributions from the previous sale. Despite knowing the haunting memories the house held for me, Hannah had a plan to address them. She also recognized the intrinsic value in the countless projects I had undertaken within those walls, projects whose worth wouldn't be fully captured in a simple sale. With her characteristic finesse as a project manager, Hannah devised a comprehensive plan, crunched all the numbers, and together we presented the proposal to Kim. Seated at our familiar kitchen table, my former wife wore a pained expression. her guilt evident. The realization of her loss had likely struck her months ago, yet the sight of the tall, stunningly dressed and confident woman before her, calmly discussing the sale of our once joyful family home, drove home the harsh reality. Hannah, in stark contrast to Kim, exuded a different aura. Tall, with an alluringly exotic face adorned with slightly almond-shaped grays, black hair, and creamy white skin. She possessed an almost excessive degree of selflessness and love. Jill remarked that Hannah resembled a female version of myself. Concluding the discussion, Hannah stated, "So we'll purchase your share of the house outright, as is, at this price. Here are all the details, and it's a cash offer. No realtor fees." She passed a cashier's check across the table made out to Kim Armstrong. Kim gazed at it blankly, her inner turmoil evident, yet her need for the money apparent. Finally, Kim responded flatly, "Okay, where do I sign?" Hannah entered my office and returned with a woman of middle age. "Kim, meet Mrs. Furness. She's in charge of all the documents and will oversee their signing and notarization. Afterwards, she'll handle the necessary filings with the appropriate authorities. Kevin and I have already covered her fees. All you have to do is sign, along with Kevin and me." Hannah also discussed the impending sale of her condominium with Mrs. Furness, who would manage the transaction later that day. The proceeds from the condo would help offset the purchase and renovation of our new house, making it our home. The surprising part? It wasn't Hannah and I planning to marry that seemed to unsettle Kim. No, during the paperwork signing, Hannah did something as natural to her as breathing is to some. At one point, while passing the papers, she reached over and took my hand, giving it an affectionate squeeze, accompanied by a warm, sweet smile. Kim witnessed it, and for the first time since I've known her, the light in her sparkling, expressive blue-violet eyes dimmed. All I could feel was pity. A few months later, just before Nick and Kim were about to get married, she unexpectedly returned home early due to a broken plumbing, which caused classes to end prematurely. To her surprise, she discovered that Nick was cheating on her with their upstairs neighbor. Devastated, she left and moved in with another divorced teacher, becoming a roommate in an apartment near the school, where she now leads a relatively secluded lifestyle. It was at this point that Kim finally reached a critical point and sought help from a psychiatrist. Using the Employee Assistance Program of her teachers' union, EAP, she began attending psychotherapy sessions twice a week. Jill shared with me that her mother was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, as well as serious problems with self-esteem and self-confidence. They also discussed her unhealthy attachment to Nick Smith, but Jill has not yet found out what revelations Kim might have had. I admit I'm still curious to know the reasons behind all this. Kim and I still share custody of the children, and I occasionally encounter her at family gatherings. It's evident that therapy and medication have been beneficial. However, Jill sadly remarked to me about her mother, "The most agonizing hell is the one we construct for ourselves." My daughter has developed genuine compassion for Kim, and Jill now spends more time with her. Their relationship has significantly improved, and they've begun the journey towards reconciliation. Scott doesn't interact with Kim as frequently as Jill does, so he continues to grapple with their relationship. However, our bond has strengthened, and I've urged him to work on repairing their connection. When Hannah embraces me warmly or holds me close, I realize that the preceding 21 years were a prelude to discovering the healthy, selfless love of a true partner. Looking back, the pain was worthwhile, but I regret the unfair impact on so many innocent individuals.